player to the right. We have captions down below. If you go further down, we also have the presentation as well. So now that I've taken up so much of our time here, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. J to get us started, and we will be off and running. All right, so Dr. J, over to you.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you for, yeah, I don't know what happens. We know technology is always not our friend, even though we love to think it is. So thank you all for being part of this session. I am Dr. J. I'm an instructor at Roosevelt University, which is based out in Chicago, Illinois, from the Heller College of Business. I've been teaching for a number of years, a decade plus. Um, I got started really early in my career teaching. So I've been teaching higher ed and, of course, have some stints in K-12. Mostly, of course, online and face to face. I've taught almost everything you can think of in terms of methods, online, face to face, um, hybrid, fast track, meaning like the courses are just on the weekends. But online has always fascinated me in terms of teaching. And of course, after the pandemic, well, during the pandemic, it was a real challenge for those who never taught online. Even those who taught online, it was a different challenges. Um, and in this one, I've been teaching, entrepreneurship and other various courses. And so, like, one of the things that I've wanted to do with this is kind of talk about the innovator mindset, because I actually had a weird awakening after taking an innovator mindset assessment a few weeks about. I want to take about a year or two ago. It's been a little while. So, just the agenda, we're going to talk about the digital classroom. What is that? I'm not going to go fully in detail into the digital classroom, because most of you all, a lot of you are experts here, and so you know what a digital classroom is. But it's going to tweak a little bit by adding what I call the TikTok era. I'm not sure if it's an official term, but I like to define what the TikTok era is, especially teaching in the digital classroom in this era, because we are going into a new phase now, post pandemic, after the pandemic. Talk about the innovator mindset. How do you apply that? And of course, open it up to any questions. So I know I can't see this, but I just want to do a little icebreaker activity to get the things rolling, to see how to make sure that everyone's in tune and hopefully paying attention. In the chat box now, I want you to think about this question. This just think about this question and put it in the chat box, because I know there's probably a lot of us here. I won't be able to hear everybody's answer. But in the chat box, type in, what's your favorite show, like whether it's TV show or whatever, your favorite TV show or your favorite movie, right? Either show or movie that you're currently watching or you have watched. Think about that one specific show or one specific movie. And from that, so write that there, write that. And then from that show or movie, what character would you not want to be? So, you know, um, think about your favorite TV show or your movie, and from that, what character would you not N-O-T, not want to be? So I'll give you like a few seconds, because we always talk about, we ask that question. Oh, I want to be Superman, or I want to be this, or I want, you always want to be the favorite character, but who would you not want to be in that show or that movie?
Jay, we've got a couple of The Office, some Community, House of Cards. Let's see. People do not want to be Stanley from The Office, Michael Scott from The Office. Okay, now they're rolling in really fast. Let me see. Walking Dead do not want to be Eugene. Elf do not want to be the store manager. Lots of varied things here. So lots of interaction.
Nice. Yeah, but I just my favorite movie, of course, of all time is the original Blues Brothers movie. If you haven't watched that movie, I highly recommend you watch that movie. Highlights what Chicago used to be back in the day. And I would not want to be the country band that was stuck in the RV in the water. Anyway, so just to get your little mindset going there. All right. So let's get started here. So as I was talking a while back, about a year or two ago, I took this innovator mindset profile, and there was an assessment of my innovation. And I'm not gonna go into full detail because I mean we could literally do a whole, like, this was like a whole day session, basically, taking taking this assessment. I don't want to go too much into detail, but the point of this, of showing, is when I before taking this assessment, I thought, man, I'm innovative. I have my master's in entrepreneurship from Oklahoma State. I've dabbled in startups. I'm very innovative. I've been teaching for a while. I like to do things differently. And I take this assessment, and I'm at like the 46 out of 100. 100 is the top. Of course, zero is the is like you're not innovative at all. So I'm at the middle, kind of barely at the middle of the pack. It's basically saying, you're not innovative enough, or you're really just barely at the innovation stage. You really like to, hold things. You're very, as they, just to kind of change things up, very corporate. You like to follow things by the rules. And I was like dazzled. I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about that. At first I was obsessed, like, that's not right. Sometimes when we take assessments, when we look at them, like, well, that's not me. That's not what I think I was. And after talking with some people during the session, because we partnered up with folks, and, of course, this is through Zoom. So we changed partners, and we're looking at this assessment and then asking some questions, like, realize, yeah, I do follow things by the rules. Sometimes depending on what department you're teaching, or, you're given a course, you have to follow this is the book, this is, the course shell has already been created for you. Don't do anything new. And I've been in those situations, so I followed things by the rules and didn't change things up a bit. When the lines are more inwards, it means you're less innovative. But it really, after taking this, I realized, like, okay, I need to, get more in depth with this innovative mindsets. Of course, and things changed up in the classroom, because I was not very happy with this assessment, with the result, not the assessment itself, but the results. And so, that kind of led me to this, kind of changing things up in the digital classroom, especially, with the pandemic going on, everybody being on Zoom, almost everybody being on Zoom. How do we get things going? And so, just to define, this is not, of course, this is just my words, and not, this is not the end all be all, but, the TikTok era, we're going through this. Of course, if you know TikTok, the famous social media outlet. Of course, maybe some of you have accounts. As we look at the TikTok era, and it just doesn't have to go with the typical 18-year-old kid, or the 12-year-old, or even adults themselves, like 30, 40, 50-year-olds are in this. I would even include them in this era, because it's people are taking control of their personal. They're taking control and personalizing content to one's satisfaction in short form content. So we are living in an era where you really are, and our attention span is getting even shrinking even more, right? Like, for you, how much time do you focus on something? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm talking, all of a sudden some people just are probably on another Zoom call, or there's something, just they're probably scrolling down their TikTok right now, or their social media, because our attention is just not. There's so much content out there that our attention just, we don't grab onto it. So it gets challenging at times when you're teaching in the digital classroom, online, even face to face, but more so in the digital classroom. How do you capture their attention? How do you make sure they're paying attention? How do you make sure that they're staying in tune and at least learning something after the class, or after the class is over? Because it is getting difficult, with this whole the attention of folks, getting them, because they're starting to get used to the short videos, the short attentions, but like it's just quick and to the point, of content. So we look at the digital classroom, and I want you to look at this picture, because I'm pretty sure for most of you who were teaching or teach online, or especially during the pandemic, or now, students turn off their camera, and probably some of them are cooking or doing grocery shopping. And we're living in this new era, right? And let's just face it, right? Students, even ourselves, right? Sometimes we're cooking, we should be in meetings, we got the Zoom going on, we turn off the camera. But what is a digital classroom? There's a lot of definitions out there, but one of the things that we're looking at, it's a process of teaching and learning by integrating application of technology, right? Computer, iPads, Chromebooks, whatever. It's a piece of technology in it, right? We're integrating technology into it. And of course, digital classroom just didn't start the pandemic. Right? This was going on since the 80s, right? If you recall back in the 80s, it was just, computers were barely used. And of course, as we move forward decade after decade, just technology has been ingrained in us. It's like it's very much more difficult nowadays not to have some type of digital integration in the classroom, even face to face. In like there's some form of digital in the classroom now, right? And of course, with the digital classroom, it opens us up to the world. It opens up a scope, right? We share more now. There's much more content available now than ever before. You can just Google stuff or whatever search engine your preference is. I was making the joke to my wife that, you remember the days when we wanted to find something, we had to go to the encyclopedia, or go to the library and the Dewey Decimal System and find what we want. And now kids can, people can just Google it or even ask Alexa. I was testing it out. I even asked Alexa, or one of the Google things I have. I was like, do this multiplication. I asked them, what's 75 times 5? Because I was like, I'm too lazy to even get the calculator now, because you can ask. And that's, we're living in this era of digital classroom, integrating, into the classroom, the technology. And so now that we know, so we all have the application of technology. We all have, most of us are teaching with the technology or in the technology. And so we have that, but how do we become innovative, and how do we make sure that we can apply the innovator mindset, and how do educators apply such mindset? The innovator mindset is not something like not based on your IQ. It's not something you were born with, in a sense. We really, all of us have some sort of innovator mindset within us. Sometimes we just haven't really found it, or some of us already do it right now, um, and have it within us. All educators can bring some type of innovator mindset within themselves. And we talk about innovative mindset. We've probably heard of the mindset, the growth mindset, fixed mindset, or entrepreneurial mindset. And there are some differences, right? And I also talk about there is a difference between entrepreneurial mindset and innovative mindset. But just for the sake of this conversation, the difference is, we talk about a mindset. Believe in oneself. Determines your behavior outlook. Some people have just that fixed mindset. It is what it is, and I'm not going to change my ways. Life is life, and that's it, right? Or growth mindsets. Continuously growing to be better themselves, finding new ways, right? And of course, mindset believes in their cultural values, the values of a person, their philosophy. So we all have mindsets right now. We all have our own beliefs, our own ways of doing things, our own whatever, in education, religion, politics, whatever it may be. When we look at innovator mindset, right? An innovator mindset is you're constantly questioning and testing. You're looking for ways to make improvements. And I want you to kind of think about, when we talk about looking for ways to make improvement, it's not necessarily waiting for someone to tell us to make improvements. It's constantly making those changes, because, and I think as educators, or if you teach, whether it's K-12 or higher ed or adult learners, I think you always have to find ways to make improvements in the classroom. Probably doesn't have to be every single quarter or semester or year, but at least change it up once in a while. And of course, when you have an iterative mindset, you're constantly looking ways to improve. Having imagination, being open and adventurous. You know, Having that imagination, just, like, what could happen if I did this? Well, let's see what happens. Seeing new possibilities. And I think the important one too is you have to embrace failure. Some of us do not like to fail. Like, I don't like to fail, but I think that's one of the best lessons in life. And trust me, I'm in the classroom. Like, there's been times when I did stuff, and boy, did it fail miserably. And I was like, yo, I'm not doing that again. Um, and I think that's part of the learning process. Okay, I failed at this particular activity, and let me learn from it and probably not do it again, or if I'm going to do it again, do it differently. Of course, having creativity, being creative. And so that is when we talk about the innovative mindset, just letting stuff be. Now, I will say though, does the innovative mindset apply in every single topic or subject? I can say yes and no. I think probably the only ones who shouldn't be creative is folks in accounting and finance, because that's called a felon. So I don't want, if you teach accounting, I don't know if anybody teaches accounting. I don't want you to be all creative with them, like, let's find a way to scheme the system. No, you don't want to do that. But of maybe, having some other types of lessons for them. But anyway, that was just a running joke. When I was in the getting my master's in entrepreneurship, someone said that joke. The only ones who shouldn't be creative is the accountants, because that's called the felon. Um, but yeah, that's the innovator mindset. And so when we look at the practice of the innovator mindset, looking at these four things again, this is not the end. Like when you type in innovator mindset on Google, or you Google Scholar, right, or you find research on it, there's a lot of different variations of inner mind, but these are kind of some of the four highlights of the inner mindset and practice, right? And again, I talked about what it in the previous slide, talked about what it was in some of the highlights of what the inner mindset is. But again, I really encourage you all to look for potential, right? Embrace creativity. Sometimes as educators, especially for those who've been in the field for a while, you're not, you don't, some people don't want to embrace or look for new potentials. It's always the flaws, right? How many of you been in meetings or in sessions, or conversations, whether it's a conference or something else, and there's that negative person, or not, I don't want to say negative, but the person who was like, no, it's not going to work, no, it's not going to work, there's all these flaws that's going to happen, no, it's not going to work. Like, well, how do you know it's not going to work? Like, have you done it yourself? No, it's because the students are not good. Well, how do you, like, you don't know until you've actually done it, in a sense. I think you have to embrace the new possibilities, because right now, again, and it, this whole digital classroom and the environment in the class, it's not going to change. It's only going to get more enhancement with more technology in the classroom. I mean, you see little kids now, like, you take their iPad away, it's like you've taken their life away, or heaven forbid the Wi-Fi goes out. Like, I have little nieces and nephews. Boy, they sure love those iPads. You take it away, it's like for a few minutes they go crazy, but then after a while they. But again, new ways, seeking input. And I think another one too is when you're open, seek input from others. I think one of the ways is definitely getting feedback from others, and not be holding yourself to new ways in the classroom. So how do you apply this, right? So I've been talking about the digital classroom, this innovator mindset. Well, Jay, how does it apply? And again, it's always been a sort of it's been kind of a learning, trial and error, and failure in the sense, right? It's been a trial and error phase for me in being innovative mindset. So some of the best practices, right, for the digital classroom that you can do. Here's some ways that applying, and I'll talk about, and we're going to talk on all three. Um, with project-based learning, right? Having students engaging kind of real world, in real world projects. One of the courses I teach at Roosevelt is business plan. It's a course on it's how to write a business plan. Um, it's basically like it's an entrepreneurship course, but of course, they're it's an entrepreneurship course, and one of their projects at the end is writing a business plan, a business plan, sorry, with teammates there, and one of the things, and you know that really, and some folks actually do go out and try to implement their business plan after the class, but it's a meaningful project because it teaches them to work and collaborate with other colleagues, which they're going to go on to the real world, and do so anyway. I think very few jobs out there that you don't collaborate or talk to people, on a daily basis. It's very rare, job. But of course, writing that business plan, doing some type of video project, or film documentary. Like, students love to film themselves. Most of them, or film things or film themselves. So, creating some type of video project, design a city. again, we go back to the TikTok. When I mentioned the TikTok era, students like to personalize and create, and you'd be surprised at how innovative they become when you give them the leadership, or give them the, like, okay, I want you to design or create something for me, or sorry, for the class, this is your project, this is what you got to do, and students will actually go uh, and do that, right? And of course, it does work in the digital classroom, right? With Zoom, you can assign groups. People have much more easier connections to themselves. Of course, the digital video projects or software out there that they don't have to go necessarily pay for it, or unless your university or institution offers them some type of software where they can do video editing. Um, but that is one sense, right? And another one, pure teaching. And now, of course, this one works more if you are teaching pre-service teachers, or students who are in the path to becoming teachers. Because I think it would be difficult to do some type of pure teaching. I don't know. I don't want to be a negative person here, but maybe it'll work for other. But when I was getting my PhD, I was teaching a course of pre-service teachers, and one of the things that they had to do was, um, one of their main projects was do peer teaching. They would get into groups, they would pick a topic for that week, or they would select one of the topics and they would teach the course. I wouldn't teach it; they would teach it. Of course, they would meet with me to make sure that everything is good. But of course, have them then do the peer teaching, have them take control, right? And of course, another one is active learning, and I think this one's really important because all of us can do this. Whether maybe you don't want to do a business, if of course business plan or business model, business plan for those teaching in the business department or such. But or if video project doesn't fit in to your and these are just some examples. You can find others online, but one of the ones for active learning is, and I really had to apply this one over the, now what, 2 years now, a year and a half or 2 years, going on three now, since the pandemic, or not post pandemic, is this active learning, because I realized you couldn't in Illinois, and I can't speak for every state. You can't force students to turn on their cameras. Again, it depends on this, on a case by case basis for state. You can't just be like, turn it on, or else you're gonna. But um, and I was like, well, how are these students if I can't see them? It's like basically teaching in the dark. I said, like, if you put on, if you blindfold yourself, that's how most of us were probably teaching for most of the time when students were turning out, like, you couldn't see them. And so I was like, well, how do I get students to turn on the cameras just for a little bit, or make sure that they're active in the class? Like, whoever, I don't even know, maybe they're at work and they just have their camera on, or they're driving, or they're grocery shopping. I don't know. And so what I did was, some of the activities that I did is, one of them is called the leadership pizza activity. And basically, it was a pizza activity was, students would do a draw a pizza. I think it was about 8 slices or so, 8 or 10 slices, and each slice was a leadership trait. And from all those slices that were a leadership trait that they had, either they would rank them, which one is their best and which one is their least. Which one's the best, from greatest to least, top to the bottom. And they would tell me, okay, what's your number one leadership trait and which one's at the bottom. And of course, they would show me as I turn on your camera and show me let me see your leadership pizza. And they would talk about it. And of course, okay, they're being active, and everybody would have to participate. Another one, of course, creativity space. Hey, draw your creativity. What space, if you could have any space, like, where is your creativity space? Draw out your creativity space. And some of them would be very creative, innovative, like, this is my room, this is where I'm creative, this is the park, this is where I'm creative, or other things. And they would turn on the camera and see. Um and of course, kind of those active learning activities, okay, they're being active, they're learning. And of course, the activities, of course, are based on the topic of what we're doing. It's just not some random activity. There's a reason for the activity to do it. And of course, another one too is analyze and evaluate a video. So when, for example, when working on the business plan, entrepreneurship course, let's evaluate a Shark Tank episode. Just one, if you've seen the famous show Shark Tank, where entrepreneurs go and pitch their business and with the hopes of funding from Mr. Wonderful or other ventures there, other investors. I would have, okay, let's watch an episode. Let's just watch one entrepreneur give their pitch. Let's watch it, and then of course I want you to evaluate, would you invest or not? Would you invest or would you not invest in this company? And of course that's just a way to get them to be active, and make sure that they are paying attention in the class, or being active in the class, instead of just pure lecture, and not having them do anything. And so, uh, going to reason with that, you know I wish kind of we were in person, in a sense, so I could see everybody, faces, and see them, and see what you're doing. But we're not gonna, we're just on your own right now. And I don't know I don't know how much time we have left, but um, in your own, wherever you're at, hopefully you're in the desk, or wherever you're at, grab a piece of paper or your iPad or whatever it may be, and kind of think about the course you're teaching right now, and focus on a specific topic. Maybe, maybe not, you don't have to change the entire course, but maybe a topic from it, or some week or something like that, or section. And think about, what can you change from the course to, let's get your innovator mindset juices flowing. Like, what thing could you change? I mean, of course, some of you, the semester's almost ending, or maybe for the next year, upcoming year, excuse me. What could you change about what you currently do in the classroom? Maybe it's your delivery style. Maybe it's an assignment or assign. Maybe you have an assignment. Maybe you can change it up. What's the final project you're currently doing? How can you maybe change that final project? Right? It starts by incremental small steps. You don't, I'm not encouraging you to change the entire course, but what can you tweak a little bit to make it more creative for the students, where the student is taking more? Because I kind of say, like, students like to be creative, even though we don't, if students like to be creative and take ownership. They like to be, again, they like to be more creative. So maybe instead of just having them write a plain essay, go find me, answer these questions in essay format, maybe you have them go do an actual project where they have to create a video, or they have to create a web or something that they get some more creative, and you can show them where they just can't copy and paste some answers they find on Google. Right? It gets them to be more creative. So what can you do? Right? Just think about that, um about that, as we're moving along. um, so just think about, I'll give you about a minute or so. And I don't know if in the chat box, maybe some of you's already, like, or maybe you've already changed. If you've changed your stuff, what it used to be, into something different, maybe put in the chat box, give some other folks some samples. Like, I used to do an essay and now I switched it to a video project. Or I had students, it was pure quiz and exams, and instead of just pure quizzes and exams, I did this. Um, what can you change from that course?
Hey Jay, since you can't see the chat here, I'll give you a little inside scoop. You've got about 5 minutes left till we turn it over to questions, but in the chat, people say they're using reverse design when revising content, adding more questions and response prompts, replacing an article with some more difficult theory with a YouTube video. Let's see. Action-oriented ideas versus instructors providing routine live or recorded lecture, video responses instead of text responses.
Yeah.
So lots going on out here.
Yeah, and so, and I encourage you, all those who are thinking about ways, to look at the chat as well. So again, we all learn from each other. Let's just quote unquote borrow from each other. I mean, why not? I mean, that's the only way that I got better at teaching, was learning from others. The good and not so good. You gotta learn from others. I mean, learning from other educators is the best way to enhance ourselves, and from people. Just learn from others and see what they're doing, and say, how can I apply this into my classroom? Will this work in my classroom? And so, just as we finish up, right, as we wrap up, um I think one of the things is be creative and learn from failures. Trust me, there's going to be failures. It may not work out how you intended it to be, and that's totally fine. I think some of us are just afraid of failure in the classroom, or students just giving us those awkward looks if you're back in the classroom. And trust me, that's happened to me. But again, it's just fine tuning it, see where you can do, enhance it, learn from others, and again, remix it yourself, as I like to say. Remix it for your to fit your classroom, because you know your classroom more than anybody else, and you know your student body, you know what they're capable of, you know the access that they have. And so make sure it fits for your classroom, your needs, and of course remember, of course, always make sure it fits to what you're teaching, the objectives and such, and the goals of the class. Don't just do an activity just to do an activity. Just how does it fit into what the learning goal is for that specific topic or the course or whatever it may be. Again, it's kind of like the forces within you, kind of the mindset. The innovator mindset is within you. We all have that innovator mindset within ourselves. It's just let's just bring it out, and not be afraid to apply it into the classroom, especially the digital classroom. And so again, I'm more than happy to stay connected. I would definitely love to stay connected with everybody. There's my email, my sites, of course, social media. And no, I don't have a TikTok account. It's just it's barely enough to keep up with these three, but I know, it's just, yeah, but I've seen those TikTok videos and it's very famous. Of course, my YouTube channel there. But yeah, let's stay connected, and more than happy to continue the conversation. I guess I'll open it up to any questions.
Yeah, Jay, thanks so much. Lots of interaction in the chat, not quite so many questions for you. We did have a couple way at the beginning around that initial assessment and that graph you'd shown.
Yeah.
Just what could you remind us what the title of that assessment was? And then there were a couple questions on how you actually read that graph with the innovation cycle at the top of it. So I don't know if you can flip back to that.
Yeah, so good question. So, and what I could do is, if you reach out to me, I can send you to the website about the innovator mindset. And so basically what this, it's a innovator mindsets snapshot. And basically what it's is, you can see here what it's reading is the more inwards. So if you see like this red line, it's more centered towards the middle of it. It's basically giving you the lines is basically you're less innovative. It's basically on a 12 dimension. So you're asked these questions, like any assessment, you're asked all these questions, and the different profiles here. Like the red is cognitive, the blue is values, the green is behavior, and of course the straight line is combined. And so it's just really saying, how you are as the individual, like how creative are you, how open are you. As you can see, I'm my mindset is I'm pretty open, but it's just kind of straightforward shot, this. And of course, how or where are you, of course, reality phase. And so it's basically, again, it's measuring, it's a guide. It's not in the sense of the end all be all. But I could definitely send you more information on how to take, if you want to take this innovator mindset. And it actually, the cool thing about this innovator mindset, the wonderful thing about it, is that you can, of course, if you get certified to it's certified on this, you can actually apply it in the classroom. There's like lesson plans and such to apply this profile in the classroom.
And Jay, I think there is interest in the chat for having the link to this assessment. So if you could post that or share it or provide it to me and I can share out later, that would be great as well.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely do that.
Looking
I'll
back through questions as well, I know there was one question when we were talking about kind of you know, cheating and things like that. Was what are you using something in particular? Someone was asking if you use something like Turnitin. Um,
for cheating.
yeah, just
Yeah.
to yeah.
Oh yeah, so there is, of course, turnitin.com and such. But it's cheating. That's why I like to do activities where how can I lessen sometimes you just can't. You try your best, but sometimes of course people have to turn in essay assignments based on what your department says. But it's very hard. I sometimes like don't do it. Just turn it in.com. But I try to do more activities where students really can't cheat and defeat that. So that's I don't know. That's a really good question. It's hard to kind of say, but that's my best answer. Yeah, I do use turnitin.com. And of course, sometimes they're not necessarily cheating on purpose. Sometimes they just don't know how. If you're writing a paper, some students just don't know how to cite properly. And I think not I don't want to say a total issue, but that's something that they could be fixed or helped on. Just they're not citing properly. It's not that some students just blatantly, and of course that you handle that differently. Just give them a straight up zero and then go next time if you cheat or do that, you're gonna go through the procedure. But when you give them a zero, they freak out and like, okay, I need to do better. So, but yeah, I posted up the innovator mindset, the profile that I took. So I am certified to do that assessment. So that's one of my certifications to do that assessment. But I don't want to take up the whole time talking about that because that's a whole different thing. But yeah, so check it out. Definitely, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me.
Yeah, great. And I think that just about wraps it up with questions that were in the chat here. So thank you so much again, Dr. J, for presenting today. Just a couple of reminders for everybody. I just did post this in the chat a little while ago, but the recordings will be available of all of the sessions here probably starting tomorrow up until December 10th. So you'll have about a month to come back and revisit those if you would like. Dr. J did provide us these slides, so they are located at the bottom of this page if you would like to look at those or download them. We will be sending out a survey next week. We would love to have feedback on the event as a whole so we can improve for next time. And if you are looking for a certificate of attendance, those will be sent to your emails next week as well. Last but not least, we would love to continue the conversation. So please join the anthology community. More information will come out about that next week as well, but it is a great way to connect with other digital teaching symposium attendees, past and present, and keep the conversation going throughout the year. So thank you again, Dr. J. Thank you all for coming today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.